The thunderstorm was loud enough to make the window pane shake, as if it was an earthquake. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and the sound of howling wind had kept me awake all through the night. Not that I had any clue why I wasn't able to get sleep, but it could be the memories of the last thunderstorm that happened a month ago. Every time a thunderstorm happened, the aching memory of that horrid night was brought back and made me miserable. That night, I underwent the most bone-chilling experience of my life. It was the same hours late at night. I was sleeping alone when I heard a loud thud, and it was from under the bed. I heard someone chuckle, and the words, "We'll laugh and we'll play," echoed throughout my room. There was definitely someone under my bed, but I couldn't muster up the courage to step down and see whatever it was. But I didn't have to. With a momentary pause, an object started to float above my bed. Along with it was a hand. As the lightning struck, I could see vividly. It was a cleaver knife and my reflection in it, and the hand covered in clothes similar to that of a clown. Or was it a clown itself? I was about to find out when another lightning hit the light through my window, and the hideous creature that most called clown appeared in front of me. To me, clowns were never a person who could make me laugh. On the contrary, they would always horrify me to my core. And then there was one standing right in front of me with a knife. I couldn't move, and I didn't want to. I was so scared that I couldn't even mouth the words help, let alone scream for help. But to my surprise, he turned around, opened the window, and went out into the front yard. I gathered enough strength to go and quickly stand by the window and close it immediately. I saw him facing towards my neighbor's house, and then he disappeared. The next day, I woke up to the news that my neighbor committed suicide with a cleaver knife. No, it couldn't be happening, I thought to myself. It wasn't a nightmare after all. But how do I explain it to my parents? To the police? They would never believe a 10-year-old who fears clowns. I was shivering. What was going on? I ran towards my mom and hugged her by her waist. Mom, I need to tell you something. It's very important. Tears were rolling down my cheeks. She calmed me down and seated me on the sofa. What happened, Alicia? You can tell me. I told her everything that happened last night. At first, she was shocked, but then she appeared very calm and said, Alicia, sweetie, you are a very brave girl. I'm really sorry you found out about the neighbor. We were honestly planning not to tell you. There are chances that what happened last night was a complete nightmare. Sweetie, you have always feared clowns. Sometimes the thing we fear most comes to us in the form of nightmares. I knew it. I knew she wouldn't trust me and call it fiction. But it wasn't. Or maybe she was correct. Lately, I and Annie, my younger sister, had been watching many shows on television. The clown must have appeared on one episode, and I must have picked that up. Later that evening, Annie and I were sitting in the lounge. It was our time to watch TV, and Mom had gone to get the essentials for security. As I was turning the channel, a show came on. The title of the show bombarded the TV screen, stating Bobble the Clown. My heart leaped. A second into the title, I saw the very clown appear on the TV screen. I snapped and fell unconscious. I woke up to my mom grabbing Annie. I could feel the sheer pain as if I had been stung by 1,000 bees on my legs. Annie was screaming a series of nonsensical questions, and my mom was trying to calm her down. As I gained some consciousness, I could see both my legs were bruised very badly. Annie was holding the pencil that had blood, and I jumped on the sofa at the sight of blood. My legs were sore and I couldn't move properly. I was crying and I saw my dad come through the door and pick me up. I was soon taken to the hospital, too much in pain and not being able to walk for a few days. I was dismayed. My mom told me that Annie must have had some kind of psychotic episode and was taken to the clinic for checkups, but she was too young to have anything wrong with her head. She was just 7 and she was doing fine and even played with me before we watched TV. Mom said Annie wasn't allowed to play with me for a few weeks. 3 weeks later from this incident, I finally met her. I couldn't keep in my joy and ran to hug her. She hugged me back and we played together. After having our outdoor games, we came back and I sat on the sofa to watch videos on my tablet. while Annie played with her dolls. Then suddenly, out of the blue, Annie started singing. Tilt your head, smile and wave, knock at the house and take the man. Merrily, merrily down your cave, sharpen your knife and sharpen the slate. Hungry, hungry, eat this, slave. Annie was loudly reading this disturbing poem while playing with her dolls. Mom was immediately startled when she heard the horrifying words in a kid's poem. She scurried towards her and stopped her at once. What are you reading, Annie? Where did you learn it from? She was horrified by the idea that her 7-year-old was singing such a horrifying poem. Mommy, I learned it from the clown. She jumped up and happily asked, Do you like it? Bobble said I can get anyone's attention singing this. My mom got goosebumps. She was having yet another episode. Before it got worse, I went out of Annie's sight. I rushed to my PC and messaged my friend. He was my gaming buddy, Nick. Nick was 2 years older than me and much wiser. I explained the whole scenario to him about the clown. He was silenced, terrorized by what I had just shared. And then he went on saying, I have something to tell you, but promise you won't tell anyone. He told me that a clown similar to what I had described had been on his streets just 2 days ago, and what he said next cleared all my doubts that it was never a nightmare. He told me that he was waiting for his friend in the evening when a man dressed as a clown suspiciously walked into a building opposite to where Nick was standing. He was holding a mosquito coil and had a sinister laugh. After waiting for 20 minutes or so, he heard some screams from the building. People started to gather around the building. Smoke clouds were coming out in the top floor's windows. The clown moved out of the hotel exit, spontaneously going in the opposite direction. As I was noticing him, he came to me, grabbed my hand and said, We'll laugh and we'll play, and chuckled hideously. Nick told me that he couldn't move seeing him up close, and by the time he turned around, he was gone. The top floors of the building were blazingly strong, and the rescue was yet to arrive. The screams of the people, the chaos and strong fumes. I could never forget that moment, Nick said morosely. Now that we both knew it was true, we decided to hunt down its identity and save ourselves from the future ordeal. We spent hours on the internet searching. Then Nick screamed, That's him. He's the one. He is SCP-993. SCP-993? Yes, it's Bobble the Clown, Nick said in a high pitch. Bobble the Clown? And then I recollected Anna was singing the poem that Bobble had taught her, and then all of the pieces fell together, and the puzzle was complete. Before I could run off to tell my mom about it, I saw my computer glitch. The words, We'll laugh and we'll play, appeared on the screen.
We'll laugh and we'll play.
You are my savior. Please save me. These men, they'll trap me. They'll kill me. Only you can help me. I was awakened, out of breath on my couch. Another one of those nightmares. Who was she? And why was I having these nightmares? Recollecting my thoughts, I looked at the clock. It was 7 p.m. and Maggie wasn't here. Maggie and I had planned a dinner date to sort out the conflicts in our relationship. The bell rang and I rushed towards the door, my heart thumping furiously. How will this night end? I thought to myself, because lately it had been ending in fights. I pulled open the door, but to my surprise, it wasn't her. Rather, it was a nun. Yes, a nun. Sorry for not describing it earlier, but I live in Ireland. There was a famous covenant right across the banks, 2 neighbors away from mine. But still, a nun at my house? At this hour of the day? Why was she here? What did she need? I had so many questions. Can I help you? I inquired. She was wearing a habit, but her head was bigger than normal, and she was looking down. Pardon me, but do you need anything? I questioned again, with slightly raising my voice. After a minute or two of complete silence, she picked her head up, and then I saw a beautiful pair of eyes. Ones that could enchant a man. Any man, but not me. I'd seen them before. I did. But where? After a pause, her glare notched down and she stared at me with confusion, as if she expected a different reaction from me. I questioned once again. Are you lost? I'm sorry, but the Covenant is 2 neighborhoods away. Her facial expression shifted, and her euphoria settled down. Before I could say something else, she turned around and walked away. But right before exiting our front yard, her habit was brought down slightly by the wind, and I think I saw a horn and an ear similar to that of a deer. I thought I was hallucinating. Did I just see a fawn? Or was it a ghost? She collected herself hastily and scurried away. Adding to my misery, the stones that bordered my front yard had decayed somehow. Who was she? I wanted to inquire, but dropped the idea given that Maggie would be here any minute, and I didn't want to ruin our date night. Well, that was strange, I thought to myself. If it had been Halloween, I'm sure I'd be spooked by this behavior. I closed the door behind me and barely made a few steps when I heard the thud on the door. I got furious and scared at the same time. What does she want? I reached for the door and opened it. I was about to yell at her at the top of my lungs, only to find out it wasn't her. Instead, it was Mags. My Mags. I welcomed her in and sat her down at the dinner table. She seemed uneasy, which was new to me, because she was always at home with me. After having dinner, she complimented my cooking, and then it was happening again. The same phone, the same ignorance, and a long silence. Nothing to talk about. How was your day? I asked, taking her hand, which she pulled away almost immediately. It was all right, the usual. I waited a minute or two before talking about how toxic it was getting for me. Maggie, can you please put the phone down for a bit? I said calmly, not to make her furious. She seemed unconcerned. I took the phone from her hands and put it down. Can you please, once, just listen to me with all of your attention? I begged her, and my voice got a little shaky. Okay, if this is how you want it to end. End? I couldn't stand the echo of that word. I could feel my heart beating faster. Is she leaving me? What end? I asked, almost furiously. This relationship. Us, she replied, ignorantly. But I'm in love with you. I would do anything to save you or this relationship. I could feel the tears build up inside me. All at once, she stood to leave for her home, and in a sarcastic tone shouted, I never asked you to. Of course, she never did. I was the one who fell in love, not her. I was the nerd who still read mythologies and believed in them, and she was the lady who loved modern world and glam life. It was never meant to work out between us. My friends had always told me that it was getting toxic, but they could never understand how madly in love I was with Maggie. I couldn't control myself, but I had to. While I was dwelling in the deepest of sorrow and misery, John, who was one of my friends, called me. He sounded completely out of breath and asked me to rush to Tony's house, also a friend of mine. I could sense the sheer panic with which he had talked. Something was wrong. When I was a few blocks away from Tony's house, I could hear the cacophony. I couldn't resist but run as fast as I could. 3 houses away from John, a person came out of the bush and bumped into me. I turned around to have a momentary glance, and I couldn't believe my eyes. It was the same nun, but her habit was off this time, and her head was now fully exposed. She was not human. She was indeed a fawn. With an average height and slender body, she had the most undulant features, possessing antlers, hooved feet, and a short tail reminiscent of common reindeer. I rubbed my eyes because I couldn't believe that this weird creature was standing right in front of me, although I could never call it hideous, because even with the abnormalities, she was beautiful. I grabbed her hand and realized that she had signs of bed sores on her hands and arms. She pulled her hand in pain and ran. I wanted to chase her, but she ran off and I didn't bother because the voices of Tony's house were getting louder. I reached the house and I guess a party was going on, but now it had turned into a horrible night. It was a complete mess. Some guys at the party were trying to hold other men who were completely out of their control. These men seemed like zombies trying to chase something or someone. I looked for John and found him near the front door. "What happened?" I asked hastily. "John, what's going on here?" I could see him shiver. "She's the culprit behind this." "Who is?" I screamed. "The fawn that I captured when I went out hunting today. How can she do all this? She's barely capable of holding herself together," I questioned. "It's not her, it's her eyes. She's an enchantress. Although her features are enough to affirm this, but her eyes, they have the magic. All these guys getting lunatic is because they made eye contact with her." And then it dawned on me. She was the lady from my nightmare, and these were the men she wanted to get away from. And as she said, only I could help her. How didn't I realize this? "I should have let her go," John said angrily. "She didn't belong here anyway. That little succubus." I got furious hearing those words for her. She didn't deserve it. She was so innocent and lost. But I had to find her and protect her at all cost. I tried to connect the dots. I had always read about the SCP, those mysterious creatures that lived among us. So I immediately called the SCP Foundation and informed them about the incident. A team of force arrived at the party and injected the victims with some solutions, most possibly the amnestic. I still remember vividly that her presence had caused the stones around her to decay, and every phone that tried to capture her grew an odd plant out of its camera. So much was her power against objects around her. Later, it was revealed that she was designated as SCP-166. The day she came back to my house was the day she had escaped from her containment and tried to come back to her old home, the Covenant, to find the truth about herself. In search of the Covenant, she first reached out to me so I could safely guide her to her home, but given the fact that I didn't recognize her, she was disappointed and left on her own. Later, she was captured by John because of her reindeer-like features, but things didn't go okay since she left the party in chaos. Although she was successfully taken back to her containment, there was still one thought that kept me awake at night. If she could enchant every guy to fall in love with her to the point of obsession, then why not me? Dan and I rarely had the chance to meet, but I had called him since this was very important not just to me, but to him as well. We had to scrutinize the ruthless business of the skin salesman. Yes, a man who sold the skin. The bell rang and I quickly went to open the door. Dan was there. I welcomed him in and we both needed a good old whiskey before we went down the rabbit hole. Being sober would just creep us out when we would discuss the gruesome events that we underwent. Dan poured half a glass and drank it all at once. He then started telling his story. "It was midnight. I had just come back to my apartment after working tirelessly. I greeted my girlfriend Jess, who was watching TV and adoring her favorite star, Britney Spears' new song. Jess was always a maniac for Britney Spears. She idolized her and kept a log of her every event. When we started dating, Jess had told me about her craze. I thought it had to be a phase, but it wasn't. One day she even said if I could get the chance to wear her skin and walk so proudly, that would be worth everything I ever had. I found this behavior very creepy, but never mentioned it to her. I wanted her to go to a psychologist and talk about her fantasies regarding her idol, since to me they were getting out of hand. I sat with her for a few minutes and then told her that I was going in for a shower, to which she just nodded. The shower relaxed me somewhat. Since the Grammy Award ceremony was just in 4 weeks, the hustle and mayhem had me work double shifts to keep everything in check. I had bathed and was just drying my hair. The dryer stopped and I could hear the song stop. Finally, we can have a moment with each other, without her Britney craze, I thought to myself. But the TV was still on, and had some kind of infomercial running.
I've got a special treat for you. We are happy to announce the VIP Lookalike Department. We all know how difficult the creation of homunculus is. It's a fine art that takes years of practice. So, when a replacement order on VIPs come in, every detail needs to be perfect. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. But, for the right price, you too can look like famous icons from around the globe.
What a funny way to promote a horror movie, I thought. These advertisers always find the most creative way to hit the big box and earn millions. I then quickly started the dryer again, and this time when I stopped, I could hear the ad getting creepier.
There you have it, folks. Come on down to Demon Dan's Discount Homunculus Depot. If you're viewing the advertisement, then you've been selected for entry. Please enter the nearest door for instant deals and upgrade those old duds for one of our newest models. What are you waiting for? Come on down.
I ended up cleaning everything and then I heard a loud thump, as if a door had closed. I peeked outside the bathroom and Jess wasn't there. I thought she had gone to another room. After the cleanup, I came outside and checked every room. I remember how I searched the whole apartment and tried to find her for days. I even filed a complaint of her missing, but Jess was never found after that. I then recalled the commercial. That weird commercial. Oddly, after a few days from that, Britney Spears had made it to the headlines for being clumsy and weird and not knowing how to perform. She was even reported to undergo social anxiety soon and couldn't perform at her concert. Dan was miserable explaining all of this. Of course, it would make no sense if someone else was listening to this, but it did to me, because it happened to me years ago, and Dan was the very person I talked to about it. Dan and I worked for the same media group, but I was a step above since I provided services as a manager to different high-profile celebrities. My situation was a bit odd since I didn't lose anyone close. However, I sure did see the celebrity I was working for undergo a complete personality change overnight. The day before the Oscars, Nina had called me up to her vanity van. I stepped in and saw her waiting for me. Her hair and makeup artist was giving the final touches and left after a while. We both sat there and she told me how she had called me here to be her new manager. I was surprised by what she had to offer. This could be my big break. I thanked her and said we'll discuss the documentation after the ceremony. As I was leaving the vanity, I heard the odd commercial blasting from her side TV. It was screaming the words Demon Dan's Discount Homunculus Depot. I didn't bother much and left the van. Walking a few steps, I realized I had forgotten my keys on the table. I went back and without asking for permission, stepped in. She had her back to me. As I entered, she got up, still not facing me, and walked into her bathroom door. I waited for 15 minutes to apologize for entering without permission, as I didn't want to lose the job. I waited next to her door, then knocked on the door once, twice, and then a third time. There was complete silence. I tried to open the door, and to my surprise, it wasn't even locked. I opened it wide and couldn't believe my eyes. Nina wasn't there. She had vanished. But how could she? She just walked in here 15 minutes ago. She disappeared as if she had gone to another dimension. I was dreading. How would I explain this? Should I file a report? Or look for her? What am I gonna do? I couldn't decide, so I picked up my keys and left. I didn't mention anything to anyone. On the day of the Oscar red carpet, all cameras were set on the next limousine that was to arrive in a few moments. The limousine was brought into the spotlight and stopped right in front of the red carpet. Out of it came the star of the year, Nina Jose. My jaw dropped and my eyes widened. How could she be here? Nina had won 6 awards for her different roles last year. She stepped out and stood with the car, all poised for a minute. It was obvious that she would steal the show this year as well, but as she walked, her gait appeared to be unstable. Her aura, previously known to be that of a goddess, was nowhere in sight, as she struggled to answer even the simplest questions of interviewers. Something was odd about her today. Could that be linked to the weird commercial that blasted from the TV Demon Dan's Discount Homunculus Depot, trying to slip in the skin of Nina Jose? Nobody would ever believe me if I had said my thoughts out loud. At that moment, I could only trust Dan. Now that we had both once again relived our stories, we wanted to track down the details. These demonic anomalies can only be traced by the one and only SCP Foundation. So we found and contacted one of the researchers and doctors at the organization, Dr. Rufus. Dr. Rufus was not at all surprised to hear the incidents. He went on explaining that what we had seen was the case of SCP-5049, Demon Dan's Discount Homunculus Depot, which was a pocket dimension that sold human skins. The disappearance was made through portals, and all of these commercials were compulsive in nature. They would draw the audience as a client to enter any of the closest doors, which turned into an extra spatial portal, leading the person to SCP-5049. Dr. Rufus also warned us to avoid or run away if the infomercial is ever played on our TV. We ended the call and were scared to death of what we had just found out. The celebrities people cherished were not even in their own skins. They were walking mannequins with dead souls of high-end clients inside. It was late, and the only way I could cope with it was to sleep on it. I told Dan to sleep on the couch, and I went to my room. At 2 a.m. exactly, I was forced awake by the loud noise of the infomercial screaming Demon Dan's Discount Homunculus Depot. Oh my god, this couldn't be happening.
It's a fine art that takes years of practice. So, when a replacement order on VIPs come in, every detail needs to be perfect.